Welcome everyone to Pro Mindset Podcast. Today we have a gentleman. His name is Collin Henderson. Collin is a performance coach. He's an author. He's written like 7 or 8 books. He coaches athletes. He coaches teams. He coaches execs. Collin, thank you for joining us today.
Craig, it's an honor to be on the show.
Awesome. Okay. So why don't you share with us your story as it relates to being an athlete, some of your highs and lows and what you learned from sports and how that transcended and transferred to business, and then why you're back to being into sports and mindset coaching.
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah, the origin story is important. People don't just buy into the message, but the messenger first. I think that's a good question to ask anybody. I played football and baseball at Washington State University. I knew early in my life I was just faster than other kids, and my hand-eye coordination was really good. Played football, basketball, baseball up until college. Played 2 sports in college. And I think starting into like middle school, high school, I just would recognize this kind of nerves popping up where you're not present, where your body responds differently, heart rate elevates, you're not focused, you're not present. I still was able to perform and get accolades and all these awards, and getting a scholarship and playing as a true freshman in football. I just was not, I thought I was going to redshirt. Started week 5 and started as a punt returner, slot receiver the whole year. And as you advance your career, I guess, again, as you get older, you recognize different things that happen and you have more knowledge. But I remember that sophomore year, you may have heard of the sophomore slump. That's because freshman year, there were no expectations. It was a clean slate. I didn't know what to expect. I was just there. No one expects anything. If I drop a ball, no one cares. I mean, it's just, but then you put that pressure, and then, so I wasn't present. I was performing to live up to an expectation, or now that I have this history, I have to go beyond it. So I think I just kind of struggled. Still started and still was part of the team and still did decently well. But I think where my story begins in the performance and mindset space was that junior year. I was like, well, I'm going to work really hard. I didn't have the year I wanted to my sophomore year. I'm going to lift weights and I'm going to catch 100 balls a day. I'm just going to go all in on my preparation to get ready for my junior. I'm now an upperclassman. And I did that, lifted more weights, extra time in the weight room, extra time running routes with the quarterbacks, catching extra balls, had a great spring, great summer. But 2 hours before our first game that year was against Idaho, it was on national television. I had this like panic attack because I trained physically, but I didn't train mentally. And I dropped a ball that game. Still started, still produced, but wasn't at the level I was capable of. And I think as I've gotten older in my business career, I had similar experiences of a lot of success, but a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. When I changed companies one year, I had a sales trainer that exposed me to mindset work. But he explained it in a way that was simpler. Self-talk, how you visualize, self-image. He gave me 30 books on the power of the mind. And I realized in my preparation and my process as an athlete and as a professional in business, I was not training my mindset. It was not a part of my daily habits systems. It wasn't even available. So everything changed when I connected the dots. All right, there's an inner game that influences the outer game. There's skills and drills that you can develop. Like the gym, physically, you can go to the mind gym, things like gratitude, journaling, prayer, self-worth, values, training skills, how to respond. You'd mentioned breath work, mindfulness, how to be in the present moment. Just, I can actually train those. So when I'm in these moments, stay ready so you have to get ready. My nervous system and my psychological makeup is prepared for this. And not only was I healthier, happier, I started setting sales records, started just doing things our company never seen in the Northwest. And I started teaching these as a national sales trainer, as a leader. Then I started blogging about it, started writing books. And here we are.
Okay, so let's go back to that panic attack, not knowing your full story, but just listening to you. That was the best blessing you ever had because you put all this intentionality into your football skills and your preparation and your practice and your training. But your mind was not capable. It was not on the same level as your physical training. And I think that is very true for 90, maybe 99% of athletes. They are taught to do the training, the physical training, the sport training, the skills training, but no mental training except be tougher. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. You're not hurt, bro. It's just a bruise. Those kind of things, which are all masking agents that make it even worse. So when you talk about mind gym, go into a little bit more detail. Let's say there's someone listening and they have a panic attack before they go into a sales presentation. They got something coming up this week, big opportunity. They could double, triple their income. Or some athlete that might be listening that, hey, their big game is coming down the pipe. Let's go back and build let's put the equipment in the mind gym. You mentioned some of them, but people don't understand breath work. People don't understand gratitude. Go into detail on 2 or 3 of those things.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. 'Cause I do want to take, I think a miss in sports psychology is making it maybe more business, or sorry, more sport focused or more esoteric academic, and not here's the applied part of how to go to the mind gym. I think in anyone that wants to improve, the foundation of change is self awareness. So usually the first thing I work with any athlete or business professional is what is causing you to feel stressed? What are the environments? What are the triggers? What are the thoughts? What are the past traumas that you've experienced that your nervous system is still holding on to? And if you can name it, you can tame it. I think what can you change if you're not aware of, like, where's the source? What's the story? It's following your own sequence. What's the story? Is it, I like to challenge people, is that thought true? Said by who? And just having self awareness on thoughts become things, energy flows where focus goes, it begins before it begins. So just recognizing patterns that are limiting you, recognizing moments that are you're having struggles with. And then from there, we can, okay, let's actually challenge some of those thinking. You have just as many examples of success as failure, but your brain is remembering all the failures. So you're creating this, you're anticipating, you're living in this state of shame and a state of fear. And it's that noise is hard for you to be quiet and clear. So I think there'd be a level of, let's just name the emotion, name the fear, name the experience. And I love this lesson from Ali Love on the Peloton. Your first thought will be negative, but your second, third, fourth thought doesn't have to be. So self awareness is step one. Step two is what I teach is self talk and what you're visualizing. So the number one driver of confidence, according to Dr. Andrew Lane at the BBC Lab, 44,000 participants, is your inner dialogue, is using words as tools to create energy. So the brain thinks in 4 dimensions. A word creates a picture the brain sees, an emotion the body feels, a belief that the subconscious holds. And the brain doesn't care what is true or false. It cares what is repeated. A lot of performers who struggle have an unconscious pattern loop of negative self-talk. This is too difficult. I've failed before. Or their self-talk is like code in a computer. They're coding the wrong words, pictures, images, and you are sabotaging your ability to execute. So I would have them write down some things, some affirming anchor statements, some affirming things of their past success, of their preparation, of their anchor statements, what they want to execute. And just use words as tools, use language as an anchor to guide feeling, to guide focus. Then the third thing I would have anybody look at is your self-image. Where do you get your self-worth? This is coming from a recovering perfectionist who gets self-worth tied to performance. Where do you get your self-worth to a result or to the effort, process, and your ability to, I would coach anybody on what are some process identity statements that we can focus on? My 3 are, I am authentic, I am present, I am courageous. There's nothing tied to an outcome there. And I would have any performer master these 5 things. I'm not defined by this. These 5 words have changed my life. They'll change your life. I'm not defined by this. Why are you letting a presentation define your self-worth to the world? What if your self-worth tied, was I prepared? Was I of service? Was I authentically myself? Did I honor myself? And I love this thought from Rick Rubin. The best art is made for the artist. Is this an authentic representation of your truest self? And the fourth thing is just to have courage. You don't have to feel confident in order to execute. And what does the warrior and the coward have in common? They both feel fear. The coward runs away, the warrior runs into battle. So you can agree with the pro mindset, resilience, grit, navigating fear, self doubt, like navigating a setback. Like how do you get back? How do you show up anyway? How do you respond with the same? Go back to your identity, like your values, your commitments. But showing up afraid is a mental skill that can be trained, and you don't have to feel great in order to execute. I love this thought from sports psych pioneer Dr. Ken Reviza. Are you so bad that you need your A game to win? Or sometimes you have to have a good shitty day. If you only have 70%, give 100% of that 70%. So just how to navigate uncertainty and new environments with courage. And you can't feel courage without having fear present. But the last one is just being process focused. Why would you change your execution for the moment? Like, so would you agree, Craig, that sometimes people's driving range game doesn't correlate to the opening tee box with their buddies if there's money on the line? Like you could
Never does.
perform, you can perform on the tee box on the practice round or the driving range. So it's just being process focused is, do you have routines that you can lean on? Do you have breath work or a warm up or a mantra or a pre execution routine, or you've practiced in a safe environment, in a more challenging environment, and a similar environment? You don't have to change who you are for where you are. You fall to your process. And it's kind of like, man, my confidence is reliant to a result. That's unfortunate because you may have think of times when you played basketball, you could not make a shot in warm-ups, but you were good in games, or in batting practice. You couldn't hit the ball during BP very well, but in games you could, or you had a great BP, but you couldn't hit during the game. So I think there needs to be some not outcome based way to create confidence, but your routine creates calm. It creates like a home base for you. So I would work on those five.
Okay, so I had a bunch of thoughts, Colin, when you were talking. One of them was the picture of a 1-year-old kid learning how to walk, and the fact they'd never done it before. They've seen people do it, and they had to have the courage to try. And the parents' forgiveness and grace of, hey, try again, let's go. There is no judgment. There's no scoreboard. We're not putting on social media. The third time my son tried to walk, he walked. Nobody gives a damn. It's just the idea of progress, development, improvement, competency, all those things. But here's the good and the bad. The good is we keep score. The good is you win championships. There is elimination in the World Cup eventually. Okay? There's elimination in March Madness. There's trophies at the end. There's recognition, there's rewards, and there's money. And there's opportunities. And it's when you can detach from that is when you can grow and develop the most. And that's what babies do. They're not keeping score. They don't even know there is a scoreboard. Thoughts on that?
No, I agree. But how do you teach a professional who's on a contract year to not worry about results? But so what I would say is you just have to, again, that's the psychological discipline of focusing on what is in my control. A lot of people major in minor things that they can't control, where a 1-year-old is just oblivious. They're just getting up, getting down. They don't know socially that it's not getting up, getting down is normal. I think what we found, the Human Performance Institute that was based out of Florida that got acquired by Johnson Johnson found research. What separated the number one tennis players from everybody else is their ability to recover quickly from failure. They had a different set of
Short memory.
self-talk or systems to forget the mistake or to remember the lesson. And Jordan has that famous quote where I missed these many shots. They've counted me to hit the game I shot on this. I've had this many turnovers, but I think Michael Jordan's superpower was just staying very present. A reporter asked him, what do you think about during a timeout? Michael Jordan said, chewing gum. He'd say, why would I think about missing a shot I haven't even taken yet? Where the amateurs who don't perform at a high level, they're thinking about, they're very future based, what can go wrong, what can go right, or they're dwelling on the last play. So I think, part of performance is you're not going to grow unless you fail, but it's just, what do you use that failure? I love this thought from Nelson Mandela, I never lose, I either win or I learn. So it's just having a different way that you associate, the way you narrate what has just happened, what is happening, and what will happen, having that belief. But there's a legendary football coach where I grew up in Tacoma, Washington, Pacific Lutheran, Frosty Westering. He says it's not the road to success, it's the success road. So really enjoying the journey as much as the result. So again, are you an outcome junkie where you need to see result to be happy? Let's compete our ass off and love the process and the winning habits, behaviors that get the result. What I teach any performer, I have bracelets that say process over outcome. We cannot control outcomes, but we can control our process. And if your happiness day to day is only tied to a result, you're going to struggle. But I think we should set, we want to win a championship, but we want to have a championship process and how we prepare, how we compete, but teach the whole framework of competition. It begins before it begins. The irony, Craig, about let's just use football for an example. The average play is around 6 seconds. So think of weight room, think of practice, think of film. It's only tied to that 6 seconds where there's a 30, 40-second play clock. So the time in between each play, if you're not running a no huddle, a normal huddle system, you have probably 20 to 40 seconds between whistles. No one teaches football players how to win the time in between plays. When in a 3-hour football game, there's only 11 minutes of competition. There's 2 hours and 40 minutes where you can think yourself into failure or success. This is the biggest growth edge of any organization, is how to win the moments between the moments.
I agree with that. And I think that quarterbacks, especially, have negative self talk when their defense is out on the field and they're replaying what they should have done, what they did compared to what they should have done. And then when they threw a pick to end the series and they came off the sidelines, the coach is MFing them on the sidelines, like, hey, bro, what the hell were you thinking? You threw it in double coverage. You didn't even look at your first read. All those kind of conversations. And then they leave the player to go sit on the bench by himself. And the only people that go over there are like, hey, bro, shake it off. Nothing meaningful, just well-intended comments. But that young man is left to himself and his mind to think about whatever he's going to think about. And then he's going to show when he goes out there the next time that it's an RPO and he's going to give it when he should have passed it because he didn't want to throw another pick 2 plays in a row. And it just snowballs for the young man. And so I think that training the athlete's mind for the gaps is critical. Golf, you pick it. Baseball, in between pitches, in between the bats, you pick it.
Yeah. No, I when I work with the athletes I work with is we design our mental install on what we're going to say to ourselves, the night before, the morning of, what we're going to visualize. We're going to write a script, some key words, phrases in between plays. We're going to have what are called anchor statements or like execution keys, whether it's balance, whether it's eyes down the field, or whether it's breath. Like we're going to literally design our mental execution, just like, all right, if it's cover two, we're going to find the mic, we're going to read this, and we're going to, just like you would install execution plays, we're going to install our own thinking. And if this is the biggest difference between superstars and average and someone on practice squad, it's not physical, it's the mental. I'm still dumbfounded why more organizations don't have more of a huge focus on this. I think the big thing is a lot of sport and performance psychology, they don't teach it in a way that connects to the athlete. It's either positive thinking, which doesn't work, or in like an academic way, or it has to be, you have to have some swag, you have to make it, you have to speak in their language, but there needs to be a clear application. But one of my mentors, one of the best mental skills coaches I've seen was Trevor Moawad, rest in peace. Trevor was a great storyteller. He would give examples of whether it's Apollo 13 or Michael Johnson winning the gold medal, and what he would say. He would give like interesting examples and stories and connect it with an application.
Well, one of the things that I see is that confidence is a big separator. And you talked a little bit about confidence building in terms of self-talk. Confidence busters, I see three that are very prevalent in sport. Being a perfectionist, you're comparing yourself to what you did one time. You're thinking you got to do that every time. Second thing is comparison. which is comparing your performance to everybody else's and what kind of feedback the fans are giving the other players, what kind of feedback the coaches are giving your teammates or your opponents. And the third confidence buster is scoreboard watching. You're playing your butt off, you look up and you're down 10, or whatever the case may be, and then you're frustrated because you're responding to the scoreboard. Go into depth on confidence building, because if you don't hear anything we say and you can help your son or daughter, you're an athlete yourself, or you're a salesperson or something of that nature, and you can ramp up your confidence, your results are going to improve. Give us a recipe for improving. What are confidence builders?
Yeah, I would have everybody take out a note card and I have them fill out what I call your confidence card. And it'd be a drill, it'd be a tool you can go to. And when I ask audiences in business and sport, where does confidence come from? People are like, well, how you practice or your past success. Then I'll counter, have you ever practiced hard and had past success and you sucked in the moment and you had imposter thoughts and self-doubt and you couldn't execute? Like, yes. Okay. So that is true, but there needs to be a better way to activate that. So a confidence card is going to truth. Again, this is not Pollyanna positive. This is rooted in facts. Write down when you've had moments of success in similar challenges. That's true. The brain keeps a scoreboard of all your mistakes. It tends to go to risk, failure, loss first. The second thing is, have you prepared? Give me some examples. Is your confidence credible? Have you prepared similar speed, similar terrain, similar environments? Let's look at evidence mentally, emotionally that, okay, check. The third one I think is very often forgotten is, who are people who love you and believe in you regardless? I think we first think of the scout or the coach or the GM or the reporter or a negative teammate to infiltrate our belief in ourselves. And then another one could be your anchor statements. Like, what do you want to execute? Michael Johnson referenced, Trevor would tell the story. His self-talk before winning the gold in 96 was head down, pump my arms, explode, I'm a bullet. That's called thought substitution. Negative thoughts can't come in because you're occupying your headspace with something neutral that's tied to process-driven things. And I think, what is your identity? What do you say to yourself about who you are? And then have a reset word when you find yourself deviating from that plan. What's a reset routine physically? What's a reset visual you can look at? There's an NBA official I've worked with where he'd get big time jitters pregame, and I'd had him read the banners. That just occupies his mind into a neutral state. But this is all planned. This is just like you have a game plan of, all right, we're facing a lefty who throws a lot of change ups and curveballs. We're going to get up in the box. Well, what's our game plan? What we're going to think in between pitches, and when you're given a presentation, like, what do you want to focus on the morning of when you have time, when the client is speaking? Like, what's your process to get prepared? Worry is visualizing what you don't want. Confidence is visualizing what you do want. So it's just having some different skills there.
Here is a fun fact. 1996, my wife was working on the Olympics. I was in Atlanta. We were sitting next to Michael Johnson's parents when he had the gold shoes and he won the 400 meters and he won the gold. And we actually and we were like 10 rows up from the finish line. So we're right there on the finish line. And so when he came, he had the American flag. He comes up and gives his dad his shoes. I think he ran around the track with no shoes on. And we were with his parents because we escorted him down to the railing. But there's a knowingness. When I see a guy like Michael Johnson, he had a knowingness. Michael Jordan, knowingness. Patrick Mahomes, when he has these crazy comebacks, he has a knowingness that is deeper than confidence. Confidence is a hope for modality. Knowingness is a beingness modality. And I think that you could argue till the sun comes down that they're different or they're the same, but I think there's different depths. Because when you just know, so you have evidence of you've got history on your side, you got evidence of the past, small wins that give you confidence. And then you have visualization of you doing it. You've visualized it so much, your subconscious doesn't even know you haven't done it. And you got this knowingness. Very few athletes can live in the knowingness.
Well, I think it's a combination of standard, trust, and will. Standard, trust, will. One of my good friends, Jason Gesser, was my quarterback at Washington State. He played at St. Louis High School in Honolulu, where they have a bazillion quarterbacks from the NFL. They just produce with Tua or the kid from Oregon who won the Heisman.
Mariota.
His first year starting was sophomore year. We lost our first game against Stanford. We're walking from the sideline to our locker room in the tunnel, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "I don't lose." He was so pissed. And then that, because he's just uncomfortable, that that summer conditioning later the next year, he's beating everybody up running stairs, and he's talking shit to all the DBs. You're letting a quarterback beat you. This is why we're losing. If I'm beating you, you're not doing what it takes to win. One of the old strength coaches was saying, don't do that. The other one's saying, do that, because we're not going to change unless we have that will and that standard of doing what it takes. But that belief, like, you don't allow yourself to fail because you've committed to what it takes to believe. But yeah, there's an identity. And one thing about the Johnson story is Nike sent him silver shoes. He's like, why would I wear silver shoes if I'm going for gold? So yeah, you never outperform your self-image. But Craig, I gotta jump in like 2 minutes. I'm sorry. I hope maybe you can edit this part out, but
No, we can. I'll get Jose to do it. Okay, one last question. You got a book coming out real soon. Share with the audience the title and what's the nexus of your book.
yeah, the book is called The Oz Method, inspired characters from the classic L. Frank Baum 1900 story, The Wizard of Oz, teaching the psychology of influence. So this is great if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're a leader, if you're an educator, if you're a speaker, if you're in sales. It's breaking down modern science and what the current modern brain needs for behavior change with AI, with social media, with instant gratification. And the characters, the scarecrow represents a brain. So mental skills, belief, but really curiosity, the core function of the brain is learning. So learning about the needs, desires of your ideal client. The Tin Man wanted a heart, which is emotion, which is storytelling. I mentioned Trevor, a great, most evidence-based tools to create behavior change and influence is being a great storyteller, collector and storyteller. The Lion wanted courage, so teaching skills of executive presence, handling objections, like being uncomfortable, stepping into environments, like how to communicate with courage. And then the Yellow Brick Road is your process, habits that you can duplicate. So the book comes out July 21st. You can pre-order. But yeah, I think it's really combining mental skills with the psychology of influence.
I love it. Collin Henderson, thank you so much for being on Pro Mindset. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you again. Instagram and LinkedIn at Collin Henderson. The website is thecollinhenderson.com. Books are on Amazon. I have books and journals. I have a podcast called Master Your Mindset Podcast. So those are some spots.
Awesome. Hang tight. Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.